thank you so much for being here today with me, Tobias. I really appreciate you coming out here and answering some questions around mindset in poker. Obviously, that's what I do. You're the strong poker player. I'm the mindset guy. And so I would like to ask you some general questions about what do you think, what kind of an impact the mindset of a poker player can have on their performance. Maybe share some experiences from your own poker career. And I would like, first of all, what do you say, like, do you think there's a ratio between poker skill and the mindset? What would we say, what's like the ratio in terms of what's more important? How important is one thing versus the other?
Hi, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a ratio that I could pinpoint. And I think both factors overlap because like it's directly correlated. If you have a good mindset, which entails, let's say, good work ethics, that means you build a stronger game and you put a lot of work into your game, so you have a better game. Or like if you, on the other hand, if you are influenced by like tilt and a lot of negative emotions, that might keep you from putting in work, or even from performing. And even like you can even have a very strong foundation in terms of knowledge and skill, but you cannot put it off or pull it off, because when you're in the situation, like emotions or anxiety overtakes or whatever is happening for you, and yeah, you might not be able to actually perform the way you want to. So I think they're both very important and quite intertwined.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what I always tell my clients basically is you basically can be the best poker player in the world. If you have like serious issues, at least, it's going to be hard for you to, well, make nearly as much money as you could, right? And we both know, I believe, that there are people out there who have much more potential than they can, as you say, pull it off at the table sometimes, because I don't know, they go on tilt, or in a tournament they make like huge blunders because I don't know, the emotions are too involved, something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And do you think like people, especially, I mean, you've been playing among the best players in the world for years now. Do you think that people, at least at that stage, they consciously spend some time improving their mindset?
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Yeah.
And I think there's pretty much nobody, at least on like the super high roller level professional players, that don't spend time on that. Like, I don't know, a lot of people have coaches, I believe, and there's also I don't know, there's a whole health kick, like everybody is super like into nutrition and fitness, and everybody is doing yoga or meditation and other techniques to work on their mind game, basically. So there's a whole range of different things, and I mean that's highly individual what people need and what works well for people. But I think I think everybody is conscious of this, and there's definitely been a development in that area where like 10 years ago, like poker players were just like a bunch of lazy people. Like I would say like 50% of the high players would be like smoking weed all day and just clicking buttons, and like then I've been there too, like going out the night before you play the next day, you hungover, you get 4 hours of sleep but it worked. It was still fine because the overall competition was so much weaker. And then once like it got harder and harder, like, you know, there's a natural development that that people get better and people try to optimize all sorts of areas, you know, and obviously involves these factors.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that. Do you think that's due to the fact that poker has become tougher, or is it just that people, I don't know, are more conscious about Yeah, or is it another level of professionalism that drives people to do that?
Well, I think, like I said, like a lot of poker players are just very lazy, and or have been very lazy at
Right.
least, and like myself included. Like, and you do as much as you have to do to be beating the games you do. And I mean, there's exceptions to that, and you've always had people that thrive to be the very, very best, and just like regardless of how weak everybody else is, they put in all this work and try and optimize. But yeah, I mean, if competition or if the general level of play gets better, and which I think is a very natural development, given that there's so much money at stake, and it's surprising, in my opinion, for how long the level has been so low. You know, to be honest, given the money that's involved, if you compare that to any other sports or profession, like there's no profession that I know of where you could print money so easily with so little effort. You know,
Right.
it was natural, I think, that this had to change at some point, and that a lot of very smart kids got attracted to it, who put in the work and who sit down and work on all these aspects, you know.
Yeah, I think it's really a good development also in terms of the public perception of poker, right? Because obviously, like 10 years ago or so, poker was still related to old Western films and people, playing with guns and, bluffing each other, and the guy who's like the biggest bluffer is the best poker player and stuff. And today you really see that, people put effort into being fit, and they talk about, smart drugs and yoga and meditation and all these things, just to get, a little bit of edge over their competition, because yeah, it's their job, right? It's not just gambling anymore. All right, cool. So
I wouldn't say that's a good thing, by the way, but
no, okay, well, I said.
But I prefer to go back to 10 years ago.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. For you as a player, of course, it's a negative development, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But it had to come, obviously, at some point, as you said.
Yeah, I think so, for
right.
sure.
Cool. So one thing that I'm surprised in general is, like, when I'm working with poker players or I'm interacting with poker players, and we're talking about mindset, and I'm asking them, what's their understanding of a mindset, and what is a good mindset? And I'm really surprised by the fact that most people haven't really put that much thought into it, right? It's like many players are at the stage where they realize they have to be kind of physically fit, because it's something that's taxing physically, and maybe they need to change their nutrition, and maybe they've heard about meditation or yoga, but they don't really why, right? They're like, okay, this is important, but when I'm asking them, I'm trying to pinpoint the things. Well, what is a good mindset, for example? I often get blank stares. Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, what are some of the factors that, you think, in your opinion, make up a strong mindset?
Well, I think a lot of the lifestyle factors we've already mentioned. So there would be, working out and being physically fit, because like you said, it is hard, especially as a tournament player. Like, right. You often have to play sometimes 16-hour sessions without a break online, multi-tabling, and or even live tournaments, multiple days in a row, 12 hours a day, being in that environment. And yeah, you see it in the later hours of the day, people get tired, and lines are usually obviously increasing throughout the day, so the stakes are higher at the end, and people get tired. And if you get tired, you cannot perform as well, obviously. So yeah, things like that are important. And nutrition, like we mentioned that before, is another factor. It's literally what you put in your body is fueling your brain and your decisions. So if you if you just eat a lot of like sugary stuff where you have like your blood sugar spikes like that, and then you crash afterwards and fall asleep and what, like this is obviously very suboptimal. And so you might want to look at how you compose your diet, in terms of maybe wanting to eat less like refined sugars or carbohydrates that cause these blood sugar spikes to happen.
Right.
And well, what else? I mean, yeah, this was like more on a physical level, but I think the two are interconnected anyway, so it's very hard to separate them out. But yeah, what else? If I think this is sort of in between, like it has to do also with lifestyle in terms of balance, because I just feel it's very important, even during like intense periods, to move, to balance out like your sitting, and that will basically affect your emotional well-being as well, because you'll be less likely to tilt, you will be more focused. I mean, there's actually a lot of studies on the effects of like exercise on mental capacity. So like this is not like some woo stuff, like there's actually a lot of scientific proof how these things are interrelated or interconnected. And in terms of a mindset, I think it's quite important to essentially to not let emotions overrule you. So I mean, it's
is there anything you can do to learn that, in your opinion, aside from having like a balanced lifestyle, etc.?
Well, I mean, there's this overall aspect, which is like, let's say you are going through a long period of a downswing, and you have these stacked negative emotions, and like everything is shit. And if you have no balance in your life, and all you do is poker, and your whole ego is constructed of you, the poker player, and there's nothing else in there, like your mental health will suffer immensely from it, because like this is who you are. And if this ego or this person fails, then you fail as a whole, and you define yourself through that. So I think it's very important to have other interests as well, to spend time like with your friends or family or your girlfriend, boyfriend, if you have one. I don't know, just spend time away as well, and it's just as important to have that in order to be balanced. And if we're talking about immediate things, now things like meditation come into play, where you basically learn to not be too attached to thoughts, and to sit back and observe yourself. And basically, I don't know, like it's very important to cultivate a high level of self-awareness, to know what's happening to you at any moment. So, and of, self-knowledge too. Like it's very important to know what are your buttons that, because everybody has them. Yeah. Like nobody is a robot. Like we're human, so we are conditioned by our life events. So we all have things that trigger us. So once you know them, you can calibrate them better. So when you're at a table and you have a certain person that triggers your buttons, like to see maybe you have an emotion rise up, but rather than acting it out without thought, like to observe it and see, oh, interesting, this is happening now. And that immediately creates some distance, and you are less in the grip of the emotion, so to speak. And that's a great point you're making. That's something I always tell my clients as well, like especially the fact that this balanced lifestyle, as you said, it goes much further than just being relaxed or being fit or so, because as you said, it's the emotions that accumulate when you're playing all the time, when you're always under stress, that's the point where I believe oftentimes you become over-attached to you as a poker player, your identity. And that's what you said, right? At some point, people get threatened, their identity gets threatened because they're in a downswing or they're not making enough money anymore. And I believe the best or the simplest way to counteract that is
to have a life outside poker, right? It's something that people generally don't want to hear, I believe, but it's really important, isn't it? Yeah. And like, to come back to your career, I believe, like, I mean, I've been following you for years. I believe you underwent quite an evolution in that regard as well, right? As you said, you mentioned earlier, yeah, in the early days, you were partying sometimes before going into like a huge tournament, and you didn't really care too much. And I believe over the past years, that has changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but like we said, it's just like you cannot afford that anymore. Like if you wanna play play at your best capacity, which is what is required now. And back then it wasn't required. Like I remember like being like behind sunglasses and sleeping half the day sometimes, and then I would wake up but you would still crush because the people were just so bad, and the competition was just so bad, so it didn't really matter that much. And I mean, yeah, so that's I guess like a natural progression. And I think what's happening now is that people treat it way more seriously and more like a job, where you have to perform on a high level, and you have to and you have to make sure that that you put yourself in a good condition.
Right, exactly. Awesome. And one thing you mentioned was like the development of self-awareness, right? Which I believe is crucially important as well. Is there anything, in your opinion, that you can do to develop this level of self-awareness as a poker player?
There's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, you can, I guess the easiest way is to see a therapist or a counselor, I think, or a coach, somebody who has a like proper education and a proper career, and it's important that you vibe well with them and not just pick anybody. Like there has to be a certain a certain compatibility between the people, but that would be one of the easiest ways. And then basically you take that mindset into your everyday life. So you might talk to a coach or a counselor for like an hour. But it's more about developing this like questioning attitude to life and to yourself. And once you start with that, you kind of implement it in your life more, and you become more aware. Like even playing live poker, like I was always extremely aware of my physical self. Mm-hmm. So in a way, like how I would look physically, how I would like
how others perceive you,
how my heart rate is at any moment, how all of these things are like, how am I putting my hands and all of these things. And you observe other people, and you it's like an ongoing process.
And it's awesome. And through that process, kind of you're getting to know yourself better, right? You're getting to know yourself, as you said earlier, your buttons, right? The button that people push. And this is usually in the beginning stage, it's something that's unconscious, right? It just pops up and you don't really know where it's coming from. And in order to get a grip on that, you really, I believe, have to do the work, right? Become self-aware and really realize where is this coming from if you want to do something about it. Because it doesn't help like to work out or, just change your nutrition or something, because this is something that's going to come up time and again if you leave it there, right? If you're not addressing it with, sometimes you can do it on yourself, but I agree with you that if you have someone who specializes in that, who's trained in helping you work through that can be very beneficial for poker players.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for most people in everyday life, even just to improve,
of course,
in relations with people, but in the poker specific context, obviously even more so.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's kind of underrated is in poker. I mean, I perceive nowadays, at least, I perceive poker as a performance, right? If I'm working with someone, it's in my eyes, it's a performer because they're making a living of it, right? And if you look at performers in other areas, they usually, a lot of them, they have mental game coaches or something like that. And I believe it's even more important in poker because there's the luck factor, right? There's the variance. And this is something that's pretty unique. If you look at, other sports or other, you get, if you're good, you're creating certain results. If you're a good soccer player, you're usually creating certain results, which is not necessarily the case in the poker context, right? So I believe it's even more important to look at these things.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very challenging factor. Like, there's multiple problems with that. Like, and I've seen a lot of people quit because they couldn't deal with this injustice. Like,
right.
There's an inherent injustice in poker, and like you play right and you play best, and still like they lose, which is the very reason poker even exists in this form. Because if we play chess, like nobody would be putting money if I play against Magnus Carlsen in chess, and like
right.
100% of the time, or like 99.99999 whatever the number is, he would win. Like, I'm not betting money on that. Like, why would I put money? So that is the very reason that keeps poker going in a way. But it's also very, very challenging to deal with these swings, and it creates another problem as well, which is a little bit like, you need self-confidence, like if you want to be a good poker player, you need to have a certain presence at the table. You need self-confidence, but at the same time, you need to be constantly questioning yourself and assessing your real skill level. And it's very easy to be like swept away on the one side, or in a downswing to be undervaluing yourself, or like whatever. And it's such a fine line, and so hard to actually to be at a more objective. I mean, we're all biased, so nobody is objective, but
right.
to be at a more objective kind of level, and a more objective assessment of your own abilities. And I think that's another important point where other people can help you by being part of a group of players, for example, who can give you feedback, who you play with and who see you play, and who can say, hey, you're still good. Like, it's just, you're just being unlucky. You're not a donkey. And the same, the same, and the same with the coach, especially if he has like some poker knowledge, but just can also help a person or a player to just develop a bit more objectivity,
right?
As far as that's possible, even,
Yeah, that's a super interesting point you're making. So basically, you're saying it's because of the luck factor, so to speak. It's really hard to see where you're at, right? It's like it's easy that you become overly confident because you're running good, right? Or you, as you said, you undervalue yourself because variance really hitting you. And you kind of said that it's important to have someone check your game, I guess, right? See where you're at, because it's always hard to take perspective when we're involved ourselves, right?
Yeah, and especially there, like we said, there is no measurable, like, there's no guarantee. You cannot, like, if I'm a runner and I run time X, like, I have a very precise measurement of how my performance is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No such correlation. I could be winning huge amounts, could be playing shit, like, over the short term, obviously, but or in tournament poker, even over a longer term, just because the variance is so huge.
Right. Interesting. So I have an interesting question for you. Well, over the past years, there more and more technology has found its way into poker, right? Pure Solver and all these programs that are out there. Do you believe that the human component, the psychological component, will remain to play such an important role, or you think it's going to diminish the better people get at solving the game, or however you want to call it?
Well, like, first of all, I have to say, I haven't, like, in the past year or so, like, I've been focusing on some other things. personally already, so I'm not as up to date with these developments as I used to be.
Okay.
But from my understanding, it's I think online poker long term is like it's going to be very hard that it stays around, just because of the development of artificial intelligence and these programs. And I think in live poker, I think live poker will survive longer. And in live poker, you will have, like you said, the psychological component for much longer, because there's still humans, you know, and humans have emotions, and humans are no robots, and they make mistakes. And
right.
if you study all the, like, I just have a very funny example from like one of the super high rollers, and that's like 1.5 years ago or something. And there was a kid who, I think it was a very successful high stakes cash online player, and he was playing in one of his first super high roller tournaments, and he was sitting down, and he was basically, there was a river decision. The guy bet, and he went into the tank, and like he was so transparent with his body language that you could see exactly what was going on for him.
Okay.
He was like thinking like that, and then he was like staring in the sky, and he's like, and it's like, and you could see he was thinking whether he should bluff or just fold. Like, and these were his option, and everybody knew besides the kid, and the kid didn't look around or was totally unaware of that whole setting of live poker where he finds himself in, and was just like in his like ranges and thinking about the percentages and trying to figure it out.
Should I bluff or should I not?
And then like after 1 minute, he's like, all in.
Okay.
The other guy is like, yeah, I call.
Wow.
He was bluffing. But that's, you know, just an example. You have other components in live poker, and you have a human element, and yeah, I don't know, as much as people try to play like robots, even like in like even very game theoretical optimal like orientated players, they're still humans, and you still have that component. So I think that's more important there than online, you know.
Right. Yeah, awesome. I agree. All right. So let me just ask you one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Like, what would be some tips that you would give to an like somebody who's ambitious, who wants to move up the stakes in terms of their mindset? Is there anything that you would, like, top 3 things maybe that you would suggest someone engage in, some activities or?
Well, I mean, it's more, I think, a summary of what we've already talked about. So there would be like these lifestyle factors under one umbrella. So make sure, like, before you play, you get enough sleep. You like it's very obvious things,
right.
but they're very important, you know, like be rested, have sleep, maybe, I don't know, develop a little pre-competition routine, something like I don't know, could be depending on what people like. I know players who, and I've myself experimented with a lot of different things. So you could do a meditation, you could do some yoga. There's people who just like to listen to a certain song that puts them in a certain mindset, like a Rocky kind of song, or whatever the fuck that is. Like there could be anything for anybody, you know?
Right.
Just something where, you know, like, this is an anchor, and this is like your association with this music is, okay, it's go time now, and it's focus, or like calming down, or whatever it is, things like that. And then if you're playing online or even live, make sure you have access to decent food, you know, like eat before the competition, make sure you have access to food. Like often in online poker, you cannot get up, you know, you have like when tournaments, there's no way, like, prepare something ahead of time or make arrangements that you have some food. The same with live tournaments. Often there's only very shitty options available. So plan ahead, make sure you have access to some things. And that would be all sorts of lifestyle factors. And in terms of mental game, like I think very often,
get a coach. I want to hear you say that.
I mean, I think you can achieve these things by yourself,
Right.
but it's much harder. And if you have somebody with experience and somebody who can teach you a certain like methodology, or somebody who's qualified, you know, it's definitely helpful. And it's been always my approach during poker, like to consult experts in, like, when you have the resources to do so.
Yeah.
Nothing better than consulting people that actually, you know, like we had this seminar with like this FBI guy
Right.
who is doing the interrogation, or used to do them, like, and in terms of just because he's like a body language expert, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if you have resources to do it, and as a poker player, a lot of these often you have resources, and they it's a good investment in your career very often. So but I'm not saying that you need that necessarily, you know. You can also just develop more self-awareness by yourself, and like you can get the Headspace app on the App Store, and just start with I think it's a very simple and easy way to get into it, for example. And then start with 10 minutes a day, like something, incorporate things like that in your daily routine, in your life. Like go to the gym, or go for a run, whatever is your thing, you know. Like it's people or if you're a soccer player, play soccer, whatever, like gymnastics, it doesn't really matter. Like just make sure you have some balance, and some other things as well, you know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being here today, for taking the time to answer some questions in terms of mindset. I really appreciate it. I took away a lot of things, and I believe, you know, my listeners, hopefully viewers, will take away a lot of things as well. So I'll leave you with that. Have a great day, Tobias, and thanks you again.
Thanks a lot, my friend.
Bye.
Take care.